Shir is for the refuah shlema of
Salika
Hadassah Bas Rus. And this is as I mentioned a few moments ago, yesterday was my favorite day in this school, which shall remain nameless for the moment. And since I got here, this is my best class I ever experienced here. And before I get to the additional sources here, I have another job. As you know, I have several other jobs. And one of them is I teach for a college called Excelsior. And that's an online college. And it's all from young men and young women. And it happened to be that one of the assignments I marked this morning was an assignment in which one of the young ladies quoted from Rabbi Yashir and from Living Emunah. And she quoted a story. And the story annoyed me immensely, so I'm going to share it with you. The story was that there was once a young man who was drafted into the Israeli army. And he went to his Rav before and asked what he should do to safeguard himself when he went into the Israeli army. And the Rav said, always be meticulous in keeping halacha. Always be meticulous. Whatever the situation is, always keep halacha properly. And there once came a day in which all the soldiers were supposed to fly somewhere in an airplane. And this soldier was supposed to go on the airplane. But he remembered, just as he was about to go on the plane, that morning he had put on his left shoe before his right shoe, or tied his right shoe before his left shoe. And he had to, of course, when he remembered that he did that wrong, he immediately had to retie his shoes the right way. And as a result, he was 5 minutes late and he missed the plane with the rest of the soldiers. You all know where this story is going. And as a result, he was so upset and so aggravated. And of course, as in all these stories, the plane crashed, nobody survived, and he survived because he went back and tied his shoes. Do you girls like that story?
Yeah.
I hate that story.
My father.
That first of all, it's not halacha that you have to tie one shoe before the other shoe. The Gemara says explicitly that it's a nice thing, but it's not required. Besides that you don't go back and tie your shoes over again if you happen to tie them wrong. And besides, you're not even supposed to. There's no such requirement. And besides that everybody else should die in this plane crash because did they tie their shoes wrong that morning? Is that a reason for a person to be saved and the other people to die? I don't believe the story is true because it's a generic story. And in fact, this girl who gave some of the story plagiarized the paper of another girl earlier, many years ago, in the course in which she copied it. She changed the story. The story was a different story from Rabbi Yashir with the same type of thing. Not the guy was not hired by a company. It turned out that the company which didn't hire him, everybody there went to jail, and Baruch Hashem, he was safe from going to jail. So this type of story seems at the surface to be a very, very, to some people, be a wonderful story, but it's not. It's very problematic. It's very problematic on many fronts, both of the person and the people who died as a result. The truth is that you have to say, if you're going to go with this kind of story, that those people who died, it was good for them to die. Just like that person, it was good for him to die and shouldn't be saved, it was good for them to die. I don't think Rabbi Yashir is going to make that point in one of his books, because that would kind of ruin the message he's trying to give. Yes?
I mean, I heard that story somewhere else.
So what? It's a good story. People tell all the time. There's a story which was published in a Parsha sheet a few years ago about a guy who, there was maybe you saw this in a Parsha sheet. There's Sabaros, where there was a big explosion, terrorist explosion, and somehow, later on, when they came to the commemoration, so turned out one of the doctors was a relative of one of the victims, and they would have not got together ever if not for that. The story is made up. It appeared in many places. It's not true. But once one Parsha sheet publishes a story, lots of other Parsha sheets will pick up the story. So the stories go around without any verification whatsoever. So let's go on. That was the point I wanted to make before we got started. Now let's go to the next part here. It says here, when you tell yourself that Hashem is directing the action, again, a person does not even stub his toe down below unless it was decreed upon him from above. That's true, but that comes from Hashem, not from another person. So if Hashem decrees you're going to stub your toe, you're going to stub your toe. By the way, now off on a tangent, the Rambam would say, And the Rambam's not popular nowadays. But the Rambam would say that the way Hashem decreed it is that he decreed that any time your foot hits a hard object, you stub your toe. That's how he would interpret this Gemara. In other words, Hashem made nature work in a certain way. It's a fascinating thing the Rambam holds. Most people, a lot of sources disagree with him, according to Ramban. But he holds that when we're talking about things which happen because Hashem designed them to happen that way, that's because nature is part of Hashem's master plan. The way where things work in the natural world is not Ratzon Hashem, it is Ratzon Hashem. So if you happen to stub your toe because you walked into a hard object, then that is Ratzon Hashem. That's simply part of nature. I don't feel comfortable with this Rambam. I believe, like most of you believe, that the Gemara really means that, in fact, if you suffer something directly from a source which is not another Baal Bechira, it is because Hashem decided that you have to suffer that at this point in time. But there are different opinions. The Rambam has a different opinion. I want to go a little bit more deeper in that. The basic difference between Rishonim and Achronim. Rishonim did not hold like we do today of Hashgacha Pratis. Books like Living Emun are based on Hashgacha Pratis. And we today, almost all of us, believe Hashgacha Pratis is involved in every place and every time with every person, with everything. It's a big machlokas. The Rebbe Rabbeinu Pashistra says, let's say we have a stick stuck into the sand. There's sand here, right? And you have a stick stuck up into the sand. And you pick up the stick. And, there was going to be a hole there, and the sand is going to fall into the hole, right? So the Rebbe Rabbeinu said, if you don't believe that every particle of sand which falls into that hole, falls into the specific place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu decreed it should fall at that moment, you're not Bikoros. You're not a proper belief in Hashgacha. But that would make the Rambam Apikoros, because the Rambam would say Hashem is not involved in that decision. Hashem put nature in place, and nature makes that decision, so to speak. It's a natural thing where the sand will fall. Might even be able to be determined mathematically. So there was once a fellow named the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov was a very, very holy person. Baal Shem Tov started the Hasidic movement. My uncle was a very distinguished Hasidic Lubavitcher rabbi. His name was Rabbi Shochet. Emmanuel Shochet. He said to me once, he said, the Baal Shem Tov tried to make two revolutions. One revolution was Hasidus. The other revolution was Hashgacha Pratis. And he said the Baal Shem Tov was much more successful with his revolution in Hashgacha Pratis than he was in revolution in Hasidus. Because most of us are not Hasidim, but all of us believe in Hashgacha Pratis. So one second, let me just finish that. So how do we understand this? If the Rambam didn't believe in this kind of Hashgacha Pratis, and most Rishonim didn't, how do we believe in it today? So I'll tell you my perspective. My perspective is the Beckhofer approach. The Beckhofer approach is that one of two things. Either HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent the Baal Shem Tov down to say we're changing the rules of the game, or Baal Shem Tov, Tzaddik Geizer HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim, the Baal Shem Tov said, I'm taking upon myself to change the rules of the game. And now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's got to go along with it. Since either because it doesn't matter really if he's kind of Baal Shem Tov said to decide ultimately it's Ratzon Hashem. So now, if Am Yisrael believes in Hashgacha Pratis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu responds in kind. That's what we say in davening. Hashem tzilcha. Hashem reflects, as Baal Shem Tov says. Hashem reflects you. The way you act towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu acts towards you. If you believe in Hashgacha, then there is Hashgacha. If you don't believe in Hashgacha, it's not the same. Yes?
What is Hashgacha?
Hashgacha means that Hashem carefully is involved in determining things which happen to you from moment to moment.
But isn't it like Gamzal?
Sorry?
Isn't that like kind of like
Not necessarily Gamzal Toivo. Because things not necessarily, because of the master plan, not necessarily things at the moment are going to be for your benefit. In terms of you, it's for Am Yisrael's benefit. So if you want to say Gamzal Toiva on an Am Yisrael scale, yes, everything is for Am Yisrael's benefit.
So Hashgacha Pratis is like Hashem's like Hashem does everything for a reason.
For a reason. When Hashem does it, not necessarily when another person does it to you. When Hashem does it for you. Yeah.
So I like so it's basically like I think it's a coincidence.
Right, that's his opinion. The opinion which Baal Shem Tov brought into the world that nothing is a coincidence. Right? Till then, there was a concept, perhaps there was a coincidence. Not then. Yes?
Question. Would the Baal Shem Tov say that? So he would say that Hashgacha Pratis is only limited to what, so to say, Hashem couldn't act through another person that wouldn't be considered hashgacha pratis according to the Baal Shem Tov?
No, because that well, it depends. We would have to get into Ishbitzer at that point, which I don't want to do today. But no, the Pashup shot is that the other Baal, he doesn't act through the other Baal Bechira, because that would limit that person's Bechira. Okay, that's a simple understanding. Okay, so that was the second source which we have to deal with. The third source is, there's a quote, when you tell yourself that Hashem is directing the action, you have no reason to be angry at anyone. The challenge the other person is putting you into your life is the challenge Hashem wants you to have for your good. So why be angry? But this is a problem because David HaMelech said the opposite. David HaMelech said, Misanecho Hashem esna. Those who hate you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I hate. There is a place to be angry at people. Now, I'm not sure what, maybe he's saying that if another person who's Yerei Shamayim does something to you who are Yerei Shamayim, you should not be angry at them. But there's the logic of this would mean that we shouldn't be mad at Hitler. He didn't do anything to us. It was Hashem. This takes away the entire concept of Rishoyim. There are Rishoyim in the world. We're supposed to not like Rishoyim. Right? So, there's a machlokas between Rav Meir and Bruria. Rav Meir held, let's daven for the Rishoyim to die. Bruria said, don't daven for them to die. It's not the right thing to do. Daven for them to do tshuva. And could be possible like Bruria over Rav Meir. But we still, when there was Rishoyim, we say V'lam al Shem al Tiyasikva. We'd say davening 2 times a day. Yeah?
I think it's more talking about like the smaller things. Like let's say someone, I don't know, like cuts you in line.
If they deliberately cut you online, or not deliberately. So what's supposed to be an attitude? The truth is, yes, it's never kedai to get angry because the Gemara Chazal say kol hakoyis kilu ovid avodah zarah. Anybody gets angry, it's as if they're serving avodah zarah. But that's because of you, your midah. In other words, even though that, girls, I've told you, right, the reason we have no tzaddikim nowadays, have I told you this?
Well, I thought we do have tzaddikim.
We do.
No, the reason we have very few
But there are tzaddikim.
is because we drive.
Why?
We drive. Anybody you get to get your license, you will see. Driving is a source of midos ros. It is almost impossible to drive and not get upset, not cut somebody off, not start cursing the other driver under your breath. I'm sure you have parents who do that, right? When they talk to other drivers in very nasty ways when they get cut off by them. And it's the people I know who are tzaddikim, most of them don't drive. Because once you start driving, it's really a problem. Look, if you girls have ever been by the George Washington Bridge during rush hour, you'll know you cannot be a courteous driver. Otherwise, you'll sit by the toll for 5 hours. You have to cut off this person, that person, the other person. So it's for my own midos, I should never get angry. It's bad. That's why road rage is such a big problem. But not because that other person is not doing something wrong, but because I shouldn't get angry.
Why shouldn't you get angry?
Because it's called kois kilo avodah zarah. If I get angry, it means my ego is being offended. When I get angry, that's why I say, very often I say, when people just misbehave in my class, I say, my self-value is not determined by how people act in my class. If I would get upset, it would mean that I feel that somebody who's listening in class is personally offending me, meaning my ego is hurt by it. A teacher should have a healthier ego than be offended and feel that their self-value and self-esteem is affected when their class misbehaves. It's not easy. But that's a person supposed to strive that their perspective on themselves has nothing to do with how other people treat them, but whether they are good inside or not good inside. And when you get angry at somebody, it means somebody else is affecting you. As the Chovas HaVava says, that once somebody came to join the group of Hasidim, which he led, a group of very pious people. And he said that, or not he led, but somebody led. And he said that the person, the leader of the group asked the applicant, he said, if somebody insults you, do you get upset? He said, yes, I do get upset, but of course I don't respond in any way, shape, or form. So the leader of the group said, I can't accept you. Because a person who's a member of a group has to have the midah of ishtavus. Midah of ishtavus means equanimity in English. It means it doesn't matter what anybody else does to you. All that matters is whether you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are in the right place. That's a very high level. But that's the level which a person is supposed to strive to reach. Yeah?
What was the answer to the other stories before with the guy and the plane? Like, what was?
you have to, if you're going to say there's ashgacha on the person who stopped to tie his shoe, there's also ashgacha on the people who didn't stop to
Why can't you
stop
say
to tie their
that?
shoes. You could, but usually the stories don't end that way.
Why not? So it was good for them to die. That's
Yeah,
what
but
he said.
will he say that in the book? I don't think
Yeah,
so.
he said it before. It's more in the regular living. Living in Munna for teens is more of like when the good things happen, but regular living in Munna, this is for more like adults, it talks much more about even when the bad things happen. Like I was reading it when I was in camp and we kept saying a lot like even when bad things happen, Hashgacha practice, which is Baruch Hashem, that this happened, Baruch Hashem, this happened. If you hit your head, Baruch Hashem. If you put your hand to your pocket and you pull out just even like you want a quarter, you pull out a dime, Baruch Hashem.
But if someone dies that you're close with, let's say, Baruch Hashem, that they died.
Right. Look, if you like, that's why I don't like the story. If you are okay with the story, because you understand that,
Depends on the situation.
Yeah.
No, let's say the point of the story isn't that he didn't need to stop to tie a shoe or he didn't need to do this. Maybe the point was all of these people.
it shouldn't. You know what? No, I'll tell you what else bothers. Just a second. What else bothers me is that it's not.
He didn't tie his shoes or
What?
No, hold on. Let's say all
Tying
these people were
shoes.
meant to die and
Tying shoes is not a good example because it's not even a mitzvah.
it's not a good example, but let's say basically let's say all these people were meant to die except for the one person who the story happened to, right? And so because he went to the army on a normal day, he would have just been like, I don't have to tie my shoes because it's not a real halacha. It's like
put
from
the idea
Gemara or
in his
whatever.
head.
So yeah, so now he's like, you know what, I'm gonna be careful even with things I don't necessarily have to do. I want to be so careful because my rabbi told me to. So now he's being even more careful, and that's why. And Hashem, he wasn't supposed to die, so Hashem put this into his mind. Oh, my Rabbi told me that I have to be so careful with everything, even if I'm gonna take it upon myself, even if like I don't have to.
Yes, but this leads to a very dangerous situation. Let's say I am your rabbi, and I come to you and I say, Yocheved, every morning when you get up, you have to do 3 somersaults. You must do 3 somersaults. It's going to save you through the day, and if you don't do 3 somersaults, I take no responsibility. What are you going to do?
3 somersaults.
Okay, that's the problem, right?
No, it says that you should listen to your rabbanim.
Say that I did it.
What?
Yeah,
You would do it just because he said he
But
did
it's
it.
not-
You don't actually
You shouldn't, though.
believe in it.
You shouldn't, because if somebody says something silly, you have to identify it as being silly.
I was just using that as an example.
Yeah.
If my rabbi actually came over and told me to do somersaults, I would say, like, why?
But
It's another thing if like God told me to, then I would do it. But
yeah, oh yes, I sure hope so. Yes. Okay, I think you get my point. I don't want to get stuck on this one.
Well, Daniel in the Torah did 3 somersaults.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Right.
lots of stories. Like there's a story with the Baal Shem Tov. He told his like Talmud to wander around for like as many years until like I don't know he gets a sign that he
The
shouldn't.
Blame Soros, I think it was telling stories about Shem to somebody. Yeah, the story. Yeah.
Yeah. So that sounds like why should I wander around and cause?
Right. It does. You shouldn't have wandered around unless the wandering around actually had meaning for him. You go as a kapara, as a golus of some sort, which they used to do in the old days. The Vilna the Baal Shem Tov, they used to go on golus. And they used to go for a certain amount of time to go on golus to see what it was like and to experience things. And we don't have that concept nowadays, really. So, but yeah, there's a very funny thing they say, the Hasidim, about the Baal Shem Tov stories. All the miraculous stories about the Baal Shem Tov. They said somebody who believes that they all took place is a fool. Somebody who believes they couldn't take place is not Bikoris. In other words, don't accept all those stories as having taken place. Baal Shem Tov was a very holy man. That's really what the stories are supposed to tell you. And what he told people was very holy. Whether the specific stories are true or not, that's secondary.
But doesn't the Torah say to listen to your rabbanim?
Yes, but that has to be within reason. In other words, there is a concept of, especially nowadays, I'm not talking about a time of Chazal and Nevi'im. There has to be a certain, the way Chazal put it, kabdeu v'chashteu, respect him, but be, suspicious, meaning ask questions. Don't take things without asking. Ask questions, like Yocheved said she would ask the rabbi why. Don't just accept things. Because we don't have people like that nowadays. Yeah.
I think I was in school when I was like in 2nd grade, but there's this story and it doesn't make any sense. Basically, like a woman wasn't having any kids, so then she went to a rabbi and he said like don't clean your floors and then you'll have a baby, and then she had a baby.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It really makes no sense.
Don't clean your floor, guys.
Maybe you misunderstood it. I think there's
No,
like
and
a
then-
story when someone said.
Oh, it wasn't here?
I think it was like in second grade.
None of the other girls remember?
She cleaned her floors and she had a baby.
There's
You
a story
were
that
like,
I think it was like Laura's house.
it's not the same thing, but there's a story that someone like I don't know who went to
No, that's in second
Rabbi's
grade.
house who didn't have kids, and he said, "I give you bracha, you should have messy floors because of their kids."
So it could be it was that.
No, it was that big.
It was true. This lady, I think, this lady was like in the street, and then there was a car, and she didn't get hit by the car because she was wearing knee socks or something. Or like,
Well, you don't
Okay.
Well, I don't really.
I'm not sure that worked. Like maybe she had like reflectors on the knee socks with like the.
Oh, maybe
they were
neon yellow knee socks
yeah.
and car socks.
Okay, let us go on to let's go on to the next source here. The Chovas Havavos, the Shar B'Tachon says he has no fears. Living Emunah explains the person with Emunah B'Tachon has no fears because he knows that their boss, other people's thoughts about them, it's all laid out by Hashem.
Basically, it doesn't matter what their boss thinks of them. Like that was one of the examples given, because he can't do anything to them.
Yeah, that's a very high level. I unfortunately am not at that level, and therefore I am worried about my boss. In other words, what this says is that if Mr. Nager walked in and I was saying something inappropriate from
But
his
you shouldn't be
perspective.
saying something inappropriate.
What? No, from his perspective. From my perspective, it was appropriate. So I shouldn't be worried about that. That's not the way the world works. What you have to have in mind is that if Hashem, you should do the Ratzon Hashem, whatever the ramifications might be. In other words, if I believe it's emes to tell you girls something, I don't think such a situation will ever arise. But if I believe it's emes to tell you something, and I might get fired as a result, I should tell it to you regardless. Because in that respect, my shibud, my obligation is not towards my boss, it's towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
But why would someone be saying anything if it's not Ratzon Hashem and the school doesn't like it? Like, what in the world would you
Suppose
be
it's
saying?
not this school. Suppose it's a school which is not run according to Torah standards. Suppose
Okay,
it's a
well, then
co-ed
it's
school.
Ratzon Hashem.
Suppose it's a co-ed school, and I say, you have to avoid X, Y, Z. Right?
Then it's Ratzon Hashem to say that.
Right. And I have to say it, even though I might be fired. It's not Hashem guarantees I won't be fired.
Right, I know.
Okay, so what does it mean? Don't be afraid.
Don't get fired. Because you're saying that someone else's, you should, like, what I would think if I was saying something that I could get fired, I would think that if I'm fired, it's because Hashem wanted it to. I'm doing Ratzon Hashem, so it's because Hashem wanted it to. But if you're saying that someone else's bechira can change it
Right.
because the principal or whoever doesn't like it, then I could get fired even if that's not meant to
correct.
happen.
That's correct, and I have to do it anyway. That's correct. No guarantee Hashem will protect me, but I have to do it anyway, because that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon.
Exactly, that's what he wanted. That's what he wants to happen.
What do you mean he wants it to happen?
He wants you.
He
not
wanted me to get fired?
He wants you not to do it, which means that therefore you'll get fired.
I'm very confused.
You lesson.
You're saying I should say, if there's a halacha, I should say it regardless if I'm fired, right?
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee I won't be fired, right? But I should do it anyway because my year should be a year as Hashem, not year of my boss. So we agree. Good. Okay. Next. Rabbi Lazar in Tainus was poor because Hashem wanted, not because people happened to choose not to give him food or a job.
That's what I'm saying. It just said that he was poor because that's what Hashem wanted to. But if you're saying that someone else is bechira, it could be, let's say, why can't it be that no one wanted to hire him? So that's their bechira, not.
It's a great
Hashem.
Gemara. Let me tell you the Gemara. I think I actually said it over once here. Rabbi Elazar ben Arach was called Seta Kodesh Baruch Hu. Anybody here ever see Fiddle on the Roof?
yes, it's so bad.
In Fiddle on the Roof, Tevye says, he has a song which he sings, would it spoil some heavenly plan if I were a wealthy man? And the answer is, yes, it might spoil the heavenly plan. And that's what this Gemara is about. Rabbi Elazar ben Arach was very poor. He came to Kodesh Baruch Hu and he said, Hashem, I can't take it anymore. Can you please make me rich? So Hashem says a fascinating thing to him. Hashem says, you know what? I can't make you rich now. If you want, I'll destroy the world. I'll start from scratch. And maybe next time you'll come out rich. Says maybe next time you'll come out rich. So Rabbi Elazar says, okay, let's see. Have I lived more than half my life? Hashem said, yeah, you've lived more than half your life. So Rabbi Elazar said, in that case, forget it. It's not worth it. That's the end of the conversation. Now, this is a fascinating Gemara. But the point that Rav Dessler makes about Rav Elazar ben Arach is that if your Shoresh HaNeshama is one which has a nisayon in this world to serve Hashem in poverty, that's not, even HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't change that, because it would go against what your purpose in life is. Your purpose in life is to be poor. Now, that's not always true, but there are people like that. Hashem is telling Rav Elazar ben Arach, even by recreating the world, it could be your Shoresh HaNeshama is such that next time you're also going to have to be poor, because that's your tikkun. There's a thing we say, this Hebrew statement from Chazal, Mishana Mocha, Mishana Mazel. You change your place, you change your mazel. So you change your flow, the flow from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Rav Dessler explains this, it's not always true. It means like this. If your purpose in life, your nisayon, your tafkid, is that you should serve Hashem despite adversity, despite adverse, difficult circumstances. So if you live in, let's say, Russia, your adverse circumstances are poverty. If you live in America, the adverse circumstances are too much luxury. So, Mishana Mocha, Mishana Mazel, if you move from Russia to America, your circumstances will change because the adversity is different in different lands. But if you're like Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, and your purpose in this life is go through life poor and still serve Hashem to the best of your capacity, then if you, no matter where you move, the poverty is going to follow you.
So even if someone wanted to make him rich, he wouldn't.
It wouldn't
be able
work.
to?
Right.
So someone else's.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if it worked, it would be bad for him.
it could still happen even if it's bad.
Yes,
for him.
it could happen. It's bad for him. But getting rich would not be good for him. And we see many times people get rich and it's not good for them. They do all sorts of bad things because they became rich. There was something which I forgot, which I wanted to mention from yesterday, which is there's a Gemara in Brachos. This is about Tefillah, getting back to Tefillah. Gemara says in Brachos, it's not in the Gemara itself, it's in Yaakov, but it's from Chazal. It says that Ganva apum machtarta rachmanakari. The Ganav, before he goes into burgle a house, he davens, Rebbeinu Shalom, Hashem, give me success in my burglary.
What's that in there?
And the implication of that Gemara is that he's answered. He gets siyata d'shmaya in his burglary. You know why? Because his tefillah was with great kavanah. There's no greater kavanah than the kavanah of the Ganav as he's about to steal from a house. So that's, tefillah depends on the kavanah that you have. Yes?
I was just reading last night living on Munari that one of the stories he gave, like, it wasn't a story, it was more of a scenario. The way I understood it was that even if you're poor,
Speak a little bit louder.
even if you're poor, the level that you a level to reach is to recognize that whatever you have, that's what you need to fill your tafkid. So you can dive for it, but if Hashem's answer is no, that's because for your tafkid, you just don't need that money, and you just don't need that certain piece of clothing, and you just don't need the big house, or you just need that big house in order to fulfill your tafkid. Someone's tafkid is to do something without a big house and without a lot of money, and to do something, and it might be like, because they don't have a lot of money, they have to go through some sort of challenge to do something, and that's their tafkid, and you have to recognize that. So you can dive in for whatever you want, you really can, but, and Hashem can answer, and if Hashem decides, you know what, this person really should deserve it, then Hashem can give it to you, even just for like a little bit of time. Hashem can give you the money to get something nice, but he has to realize that your tafkid just doesn't need that, and that's why no, it's not because
Is it wonderful that Rabbi Asher and I don't disagree about everything?
you agree on that.
Yes.
Have you ever met him?
No.
You should.
Okay. Next.
Will you agree with that or you disagree?
Oh, I think this is the next source here. I agree with what somebody said. Whatever we are meant to have in our lives, even a sukkahs in Eretz Yisrael,
That's it.
even a sukkahs in Eretz Yisrael, or a free pass to the best school in town, is determined by Hashem. This is the first of the Rambam's 30 principles of faith, which we find in our Tzidurim. We say, I believe with perfect Emunah that the Creator, blessed is He, His name, blessed is His name, creates and governs everything that has been created, that He alone, etc. No one can keep us from receiving what Hashem has in store for us. Nor can anyone give us something He doesn't have in store for us. Therefore, it really is useless to strive to please and impress people for the purpose of getting benefits out of their relationship. The benefits you're going to receive are not in their hands. That is a very dangerous attitude. When I was young and your age, as you probably know, I was a tremendous mechutzaf. I was very by a lot of chutzpah. I was very towards my teachers, towards anybody in authority.
Really?
What?
Really?
Yes. So according to this, I should have gotten real good grades anyway. Right? They shouldn't take it off from because it shouldn't be a needs improvement in behavior. Because I should have gotten something. Oh, why? There's no correspondence. Between how I behave and the grade I get.
Maybe you weren't supposed to get it.
So obviously there is a correspondence, right?
Maybe you weren't supposed to get the good grade.
Okay, but there's a correspondence. The odds are if I did behave well, I wouldn't get a need improvements in behavior, right?
Because there's a concept of reward and punishment.
When reward and punishment, it's a concept of consequences. If somebody, if you go and you spit in somebody's face and you say, now you have to treat me nicely, they're not going to treat you nicely, right?
But it's your doing. I'm talking about someone else affecting you.
But here
You
it's about
affected yourself.
It says here, it's really used to strive and please and impress people for the purpose of gaining benefits out of the relationship. Is that real?
Meaning you shouldn't decide that you need a certain pair of clothing in order to fit in with someone because you just don't need that.
What do you mean don't need that? I'm not sure. The only thing I can understand from this is that if it's not good, doesn't add to your Shamayim and your avodas Hashem, don't do it just because it's going to please somebody else. Is that what it means? If that's what it means, I agree with it. Everything you do should not be in order to impress other people. It should be in order to impress, so to speak, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the case, and I agree. Okay, I guess we'll have to stop here for today.